Okay, hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Orange Butterfly Effect. Today, I am here with the fabulous Shanie Mohamed, first time live action Orange Butterfly Effect.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi. My heart is beating fast because I'm so excited to be here with you in person.
Are you kidding me? I'm excited and super nervous.
Don't be nervous. We are in our space. We are here at the Think Center in downtown Wilkes-Barre, and I want to thank you for inviting me to utilize this space because if you recall, I sent you a lengthy email, but the theme of it was I am lonely, and that brought me here.
No, I'm so happy that you're here. So happy you're breathing life into this space. It's a really cool space to get work done, and sometimes you just need that energy and your best work comes out of it.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And so I like to introduce my guest first in the way that I see them and capture their essence, and then I'm going to have you fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what I got for you. Here we go. Shani is a superstar young professional, high achiever, community leader, mentor to many, friend to me, and I'm really proud to know you. And professionally, you're the Director of Economic Development for the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce. What's that, guys, my friend?
Oh my gosh, that was so nice. I think you nailed it. I think you did great. No, I think I'm a huge family person. I pride myself on being a young professional because I think it's super important for young folks to understand what type of impact they can make here in this community. For the ones that are going to school here, what type of opportunity they could have in this community if they just stayed and found that right path for them. So I take a lot of pride in all the things that you mentioned and then some.
Awesome. So I'm going to start, as you mentioned, you are a young professional, a proud young professional, and you started at Penn State Scranton. So how did you get into this director role from student at Penn State Scranton to now? Tell us your story.
Yeah, of course. Well, for starters, I grew up in the Poconos. I was born in New York City, and that's where my family was. My parents were not from the United States, so my brother and I were really the first in our family to get to grow up in the US and really learn all things American. We did move to the Poconos when we were pretty young, as my dad wanted to expand his trucking company. That's the way he wanted to take care of his family. And the Poconos just really granted us the space and the access to be able to do that. So I grew up in the Poconos, went to K through 12 there, and I ended up going to Penn State Scranton for my undergrad. I actually started off as an architectural engineering major.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was an engineering major, and I think primarily because my brother and I were really the first in our family to go to college. We never necessarily had somebody that was educating us fully on what types of future opportunities we had. My brother went to college for chemical engineering.
Okay.
He was in college at the time where, fracking and the natural gas side of things was really, really booming in our area. And so that was the field that he chose. By the time he ended up graduating from college, those jobs had moved to other parts of the country, and he started to reevaluate, well, how can I use that skill set from that major into something else? He ended up shifting it to a field that really thrived from his intense math focus, and I really took that into consideration when I was picking my major in college. Because as much as I love architectural engineering, and I'm so drawn to the interior design and the structure of it all, things that really connected to me and my dad, who loves carpentry and all of those things and architecture. It got me thinking that if architectural engineering was my career, I don't know if I would love it all of my life. I think maybe I would grow to not enjoy it. It would always feel like work. And I didn't really want something that I enjoyed and I felt so connected to feel like a job that I just had to do.
Yeah.
Um, and so I ended up making the switch to being a business major with concentrations in management, marketing, projects, and supply chain management. Um, and that's how I ended up finishing out my time at Penn State. And interestingly, it helped me graduate a little bit early because all of those math and physics and science classes just filled in all my elective classes. But it helped me graduate a little bit early, and I was able to start uh, my first job just 2 weeks before quarantine. So if I had actually stayed in an architectural engineering major, I would have been in school my senior year during COVID, which who knows what the job market for an industry like that was looking like at the time. I got lucky though. I was very involved as a student. I think I, in some ways, still am very community involved.
You are?
When I was at Penn State, I was super student involved. I was on just about every club you can imagine, but I did a couple different internships. While I was interning up here in Wilkes-Barre, one of the internships was with the chamber here. They were looking for students to sit on their student design team, just local students that were coming together to tell the chamber what they wanted to see out of the future of the area. How do we design the future economy of our region, and what sort of programs are needed to help that happen? And so I was sitting on that committee for a semester, and I really got to work on a lot of really cool, impactful programs. By the time that semester was done, I was done with my grad requirements, and the chamber just so happened to open up a position for somebody to execute just about everything that the student design team had worked on. And I was like, let's just go right into that. And that's how I ended up starting as a specialist. And I've been here ever since. I moved from specialist. I sort of skipped the manager role and I jumped into directorship when I was 23. And I've just been trying my best at that. And it's incredible to see that, you know, the area of northeastern Pennsylvania, how it's kind of embraced me in all its different forms, going to school when maybe there weren't a lot of folks like me in the Poconos, and going to Penn State and finding all of these abundant, diverse populations that then embraced me in these clubs and activities and internships and research opportunities. And then ultimately leading to a job here. And now I get to serve all those very same people, which I think is a really cool way to round out my journey so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I came to be here.
So, Shanie, you told that story like number one, it's normal. And number two, like it may have been easy.
Oh,
It's not normal.
no.
And I'm sure it was not easy. So, what challenges did you face?
Oh man, I face so many truthfully, because working in my role right now, economic development is not necessarily a role that you study for. There's not really a targeted major for it at school. Even if you are a business major, economic development's not one of those fields where it's like there's curriculum and tests and you pass it and then suddenly you're great at it.
I have to admit, when I was working for the Alan B. Kirby Center for Economic Development and Entrepreneurship, I had to Google, what does someone in economic development do? I'm sure that you know much more, or knew, and now, of course, are an expert in economic development. But can I just pause you for a moment, and can you just tell the audience, what does someone in economic development do? What is that field? Can you just define it in your own words?
Well, firstly, don't feel bad, because I think the first 3 years of me working here, I didn't know how to describe it. I used to go to people and they would ask, and I would say, I'll be honest with you, for the first 3 years of my job, I really didn't have a clear-cut answer for you. And I guess the truth is that I don't have a clear-cut answer for you, because it does encompass so many different things. It's everything that a region or an area needs to grow and thrive. And that looks different depending on what community you're in.
Yeah.
So some communities that might mean, a heavy reliance on working with tourism, or a heavy reliance on working with manufacturers, or for this community, it might mean working really heavily to bolster the workforce or to revitalize a community after a natural disaster.
Yeah.
So really, it's just building up a community based on its economic conditions, and just finding ways to improve the quality of life here as a result of it. So a lot of my work in economic development does center around entrepreneurial development, workforce development, traditional business development, how you get businesses to relocate here, giving them the tools they need, and then a very strong component of workforce, as I said. So we can't build business without building up our workforce to accommodate their needs in the future. So doing a lot of career exploration work, lots of entrepreneurial services and business financing, all that fun stuff. But it's all with the same purpose, that you find a problem that exists in your community and you come up with a creative way to solve it. So it's pretty cool that I can never really say that my job is the same every single day, because as the world changes, as the community changes, and as a new problem comes up, I get to be kind of an entrepreneur myself to be able to come up with a creative solution to solve it. I think that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. And your definition was much, much better than my Google search. So thank you.
No. It's like I said, 3 years. It took 3 years, and then at year 5, that's how I landed.
But go back to your challenges. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had to get your definition, because I feel like for listeners, if they aren't familiar with the space, they may be wondering, like, what the hell is economic development?
Yeah.
So now we have the groundwork, foundation of economic development. Now, what challenges do you face?
Well, yeah, and it goes back to how that started, which is you don't study for this. No one tells you what the world is going to struggle with in 5 years or what
Yeah.
your community is going to struggle with. If the answer existed, somebody would have created the solution for it already.
Mhm.
So there isn't necessarily a playbook. It's a plug and play, come up with a creative solution, test it, document it. If it doesn't work, change it and do it again.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't work, find a different solution or partner with somebody that can help you make it an impactful program. And that's something that they don't quite teach you how to do in college. They teach you how to be a little bit more by the textbook and
Of course.
um, which, that works for a lot of fields. And I think for the purpose of business and the purpose of community revitalization, you just got to be a little bit uh, more creative than that and more comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so for a 21-year-old who was just coming out of college, that was a wall to climb. It was COVID. I didn't necessarily know very much. When I say I started 2 weeks before quarantine, my 30, 60, 90-day plan just went right out the window when COVID hit.
Yeah.
So whatever soft onboarding I thought I was going to get definitely wasn't that, because I'm talking about week 2. I was working virtually from home and I was getting businesses, like processing loan applications for businesses because they were at risk of going under given the conditions locally. And it got to the point where I got so comfortable with that. I got so comfortable with not having a soft plan. Everything was just, you have to execute or people lose their jobs. You have to execute or businesses go.
You were thrown in the deep end. You were just swimming.
Yes. And that's again, not something that I think colleges necessarily prepare you for. There was no syllabus, right?
Right.
It's like jumping into a class and being asked to take a test that you don't get to study for, but you do get to have a textbook. You do get to search online. You do get to work with your peers.
Yeah.
And so it was that type of interactive experience that kind of got me through my first year. And I got to save more than 200 jobs as a result of that very first act of work. And I think that was what solidified, like, oh, this is, number one, a lot different than what I was expecting my first job to be or work to be for that matter. But also, when you do it really well, you can see the immediate impacts of it. And I think any person that can see that type of impact out of their work is ultimately going to feel better and do better and be driven by that moving forward. But it didn't come without its challenges. So, that I would say that's one major challenge. And then just, acclimating to the area. I know that I'm a very different type of individual. I like I mentioned, not from this area originally. So that comes with its own growing pains too, of figuring out your place in the community and, finding your people and going where you feel comfortable, and at the same time spreading your wings so that you get a well-rounded experience here. And so there's a bunch of challenges. And as a young professional, though, to not go through them is to put yourself at a disadvantage. I think that's part of your growth experience. And transparently, it's still part of my growth experience, something that I'm continuing to learn about, to deal with, and to try to navigate is where my place in all of the things is and what value can I bring? What ways do I still need to grow to have the value that I want to have? Imposter syndrome hits you heavy day in and day out. Up until this very moment, I feel like I'm somehow unqualified to have this conversation.
She is very qualified. I can't wait for you to hear yourself. I'm over here and I feel unqualified. I'm listening to you and I'm like, I just know that you're a shining star, but just hearing your story from you in this formal way is awe-inspiring. Like I could be emotional just thinking about it because you just have so much grace. And you're so humble.
Well, here's the thing. When you feel like I intentionally walk in every room understanding and being okay with the fact that everyone there likely has more experience than me, likely knows more than me, or maybe has more connections than me because they've been around and just playing in this sandpit longer. And it's, again, learning to be comfortable with that idea, that uncomfortable concept of feeling like you don't know as much as the people around you, getting comfortable with that because that's ultimately how you learn more from those people around you. Again, something that I continue to have to learn and remind myself as I sit at tables with people that are more experienced, as I sit and have conversations with people that have maybe had more years on me or done more, with the time that they've had in this field, or maybe have just, felt connected to this place so much longer than I've been able to. It's just, it's one of those things where it's, you work at it every single day. It's never, you don't wake up one day and you're just suddenly like, oh, I belong, or, oh, I'm capable now, or I know my stuff now, or I know enough to be dangerous now. That doesn't just come magically one day. It's, you got to work to remind yourself of it every chance you get.
Definitely. And one thing I love to know when you're in those rooms and absorbing those that are seasoned professionals, I do the same thing. I always call it being a sponge. Try and take in and soak in all of the experience of others that have 20 years on me in the field. But I've also seen you in those rooms speak up and speak up confidently in something that you believe in or propose a plan. So how do you navigate that? Do you have a first moment where you did that and it felt right to you, or just talk to us about what it's like to be in the room, have imposter syndrome, but do it anyway?
Ooh, the concept of doing it scared, right?
Oh yeah.
That's understanding. They always say, right, like bravery is knowing that you're scared but doing it anyways, right? The concept of battling your fear and doing things as you are scared, that's what we teach our entrepreneurs to do.
Yeah.
So I have businesses and startups and aspiring entrepreneurs that come to me every single day and say, I want to start this type of business, or I want to build this type of solution, or I want to do this because I want a better life for my family. And I get to go home and I see my parents and my dad, who built his life from the ground up, from poverty all the way up. And what a hypocrite I would be if I didn't try to think that way for myself. And I have to say, it's not something that you can always do alone. Even though it is driven by you, to be able to say, like, okay, I need to be involved in this, or I need to try, or throw my hat in the ring, make myself sound stupid once or twice before I sound the way that I want to.
Right.
It did take a few people that were in my corner, um, that created space for me to be able to say something that said, Shanie, what do you think about this?
I love those people.
And you know what? I've been blessed to have, a lot of those really great leaders, that were involved in my early career as I've been starting. My boss, number one, Lindsay, she's the president and CEO of the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber. Um, a very unique perspective on leadership, and one that's very refreshing. Um, the way that she mentors her team, the way she views people, and her compassion and her ability to empathize with people, and bringing that into the workplace, and using it in her leadership style. Uh, she's opened a lot of doors and a lot of conversations for me, and maybe put me in rooms that I didn't ultimately feel comfortable with at that time, but I would have never been comfortable in them had I never been put into them. And I think it's the same thing. You do it scared. You do it when you think you don't have the guts to do it, or you have the expertise to share, because everyone comes into those conversations with a different perspective and a different level of expertise. So I always have one up on somebody when you think of it from that way. No one has my perspective. I can always share that, and that's all you need to start.
Does it get easier? Has it gotten easier for you?
Has it gotten easier? Um, the ability to speak in general has. I think that is a skill that I've refined over the years. I've always liked public speaking. I've always liked talking and having conversations. And now that I'm a trained speaker and doing things a little bit more professionally, I think I've honed that skill set a little bit more, and it translates more so into these meetings and events and conversations. But the fear that comes with pitching an idea, or the fear that comes with meeting somebody that you're waiting for a yes or no from, right? That never goes away. That never goes away to me, because you will always feel that small amount of nerves, that bit of anxiety about, there's a lot riding on this conversation. There's a lot riding on this type of meeting. That's a good thing for two reasons. Number one, that means that I'm not stagnant. I'm not plateaued anywhere. I wouldn't be scared if I didn't care. I care because this is either impactful for my organization, or my purpose, or my mission, or my team, or it's impactful for my career. But to understand the value of it and to still care about it enough to be nervous about it is a good sign.
I agree. I would not want to be somewhere if I didn't have any sliver of anxiety or butterflies, because that just means to me that I don't care enough.
And that doesn't mean that that comfort level won't come over time. The hope is that it will. Um, but it might just be me, and this may be an unpopular opinion. I think I would get bored if I didn't. I like a challenge. I think I do well under pressure. And if I don't want to stop putting myself under pressure to get to the point where I am executing the way that I want to.
Yeah.
And that's just me being honest and trying to treat myself the way that I would treat an entrepreneur that comes to me for help.
And it's tough to put that much pressure on ourselves though. So what do you do to find balance? When are you not under pressure? When do you celebrate yourself? Because you have done so much, lady, so much.
Well, transparently, you're right. I am under a lot of pressure all the time. I come from one of those families that we are so close knit. We are supporters of each other. We want to see each other do well. My parents want to see me do so well, and I have such a level of respect for them that it's almost me paying tribute to all their hard work for me to be successful and kind of, you know, just honor their name and all of their hard work. That just comes with, culturally, religiously, that's something that's always translated into my upbringing.
Yeah.
It does come with a lot of pressure, though. It comes with the expectations that you always have to deliver at this level. And when you don't feel like you're at that level, how you somehow convince people you're at that level, enough to get by, but not enough to overperform to where you can't execute that again in the future. It's this ongoing balance of, I don't think I could do it, but I need to be able to do it.
And I would say, again, being in economic development and you have a really strong title and you do really great work, right? A director of economic development. But I find sometimes in those roles, people don't know exactly what you're doing, and it's really hard to describe what you do to others. And therefore, I've had that experience where I'm trying to over explain what I do because I feel like no one can see what a day in the life looks like because it's not a profession like being an attorney or a doctor. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but sometimes I feel like the field of entrepreneurship and economic development, and it's just it's an outlier.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I've worked in economic development for 5 years, and I think my parents still somehow think I work for the government, which is not the case. To explain the types of organizations we work for, or the types of fields that we're in, it's just they're not common. They're not I don't want to say cookie cutter. They're not the typical fields that a kid would grow up learning about, but the title that comes with overseeing one of those, well, for starters, I mentioned that I started this job as a specialist at 21. By 23, they made me director. And that's number one, that is I'm the first woman in my organization to be in that position. I'm the youngest person in my organization to be a director and to be at that leadership level. And it's the pressure doesn't so much come from thinking that I won't do a good job of it, because I know that it would take time, but eventually I would get there. It comes from doing it first, feeling like you have no roadmap, which you know coincidentally is just the theme of my entire field, is that you're doing it first because people haven't built this solution before. I'm doing this first, and it's a very different way of training yourself. There's never been a 30-60-90 plan for me. There's never been an exact roadmap. And you know what? I loved school and I loved academics, and I got very used to it. I got very used to the regimented way of, you know, go to class, study, prep, perform. That was the way that I made it through school, and I did really well with that. It was just a different way of doing things afterwards, and doing it first as the first woman to be in my field, as the youngest person in, leading economic development in my organization's history. My organization's been around for 140 years, more than, and to know that you hold that title and that people look to you with that way, it's enough to make you give yourself chills, because you realize how much is riding on your performance, number one, but also how many people are probably also looking up to you. Little girls who maybe didn't think that that was a field that they could pursue, or a level that they could achieve in the future, maybe just didn't think it was attainable. First gen college students who watch their parents struggle or watch their parents work so hard to be able to give them something, to know that that's a pathway that, you know, an immigrant kid can come and perform in this way and get to these levels and, you know, get to where they ultimately want to be. Not to say that I'm, you know, stopping. I definitely know I have a lot to learn, a lot to grow. Um, but it's scary and it is a lot of pressure. I wake up feeling that pressure every day. It's not one of those things that I could ever turn off.
Yeah.
It's that I wake up and I have to work 10 times as hard to be able to consistently prove myself. And sometimes I feel like I'm failing at it. Most times I feel like I'm failing at it. Um, and I come back but I come in, I have a great support team that helps me realize that I'm doing some pretty kick-ass thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
It's like,
Some pretty kick-ass things.
I think you are doing pretty kick-ass.
And they do a good job of reminding me that and checking me when I forget it.
Yeah. I was thinking I didn't describe you this way in the introduction because I knew we would get to this point, but you are so rare and brave. Those are other words I've used to describe you. And I know you mentioned bravery when you were talking about what it's like to be in the room and be the one to insert yourself even when you have imposter syndrome. But you did all of these things first and absolutely deserve to be in the position that you're in. So as you have those little girls looking up to you, just know that you made it. You did it first. Does that resonate with you? Do you feel that yet? Because I know, of course, you, as you mentioned, you're very humble. You're still learning and growing. But do you ever have that moment of like, wow, I did do this first?
I don't know that it like sets in. It hasn't set in the way that you're saying it just yet. But I always reflect on this. So I mentioned that uh, some of the things that I really enjoy doing, like I love public speaking. I love being able to share my story. I love being able to talk to people. I love being able to talk to students. I actually, young professional conversations are the ones that I feel like I'm most excited by because I just turned 27 yesterday. And so being in this field at the age that I'm at, I feel like I'm lucky that I get to resonate so closely with the college students and the students that I'm, you know, working with so frequently, to be able to resonate with them and understand what they were going through because it was just a few years ago where I was in their seats and, you know, understanding what they want out of life and how that's maybe different from, you know, people that, you know, were in generations before me.
For sure.
I don't know that I like to look at myself as a mentor for some of those younger girls that um, maybe didn't, like I said, didn't think that things were achievable or that you could be at a certain level or position by a certain age. I have to tell you though, growing up, there was not a single brown woman on the stage that was talking to me and telling me about what she was able to accomplish. That was not something that was publicized on TV, shared with the world, shared with young girls when they were in school. There was, and truth be told, I didn't grow up in the most diverse environment, at least not at the start. As I got closer to high school, I definitely did, but to not be around other Guyanese people or other Muslims or other Indians in general, uh, I like to think that I'm creating a role model for future young brown girls, young Muslim girls, young Guyanese girls that want to be able to see what is attainable in a field like this. Like I said, it's not a talked about field. Your parents aren't, you know, necessarily educated enough about this topic to be able to say, hey, you should, you know, go into this field one day. It's not necessarily one of those fields where they would talk about like being in law or being in business or being in medicine. Um, but to be able to hear it from somebody and to learn that they've found success in it, I strive for that one day. I'm not there yet, but I would like to think that in a conversation with somebody who is maybe still in middle school, still in elementary school, she is able to look up to me and be like, in 20 years, I want to be like you. Like,
100%.
I'd cry. I would drop to the floor and I would sob.
I'm sure there are already little girls who think that they just haven't said it out loud yet.
Well, maybe not. Yeah, I would like to get myself to the point that warrants those tears, but that is the dream. I want to be able to mentor them. I want to be able to serve as a role model to them. I'm going to be an aunt for the first time in the fall, which I'm so excited about, and that gets me that gets me really emotional because she is going to be the first time that my family gets to see something from like the ground up like that. To my brother's first kid, my parents' first grandkid, my first niece. And so I would love I'd love for her in the future to be like, oh my gosh, like my aunt's so cool. She was able to do all of this stuff. And um, like I don't quite understand it, but she figured it out. And that's, so cool for, a little girl like that to have in her life. So that I'm really excited for.
Ooh, sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like emotional now. Don't compose myself as I say this aloud. But yeah, that I think you're giving those, your niece included, the opportunity to explore.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be economic development, but for her to see you and to know that it's okay to deviate from a plan or to play and really figure out what lights her fire,
Mhm.
that's really special. And to have a figure that's done that in a field that was never, I would say when you were 5-year-old Shawnee, this wasn't on the radar for you.
Oh, no, no, it wasn't.
But you're strong, independent, and you explored on your own and found this path. So that's what I find to be most special is that those little girls, they may not end up in economic development, but they will be able to explore because of you.
Yeah, and I'll be very frank too, like more traditional, like Indian households, and this is by no means an overarching statement, but there is, some of that gender bias in some of those households where it is more so the expectation that a woman is going to go a more traditional path of maybe staying at home or having the type of job that she's able to really oversee that end, whereas, the male partner would be, more so the breadwinner. And I think, nowadays so much has changed in the way that people work, so much has changed in the way um that families and that their dynamics are set up to kind of fit the environment, to fit what works for each family. Um, that's going to change in the future. And I don't think there's necessarily been recent examples of that in our culture as yet. I like to think that this is the generation, though, where you are going to start to see those changes, where you are going to see there are women that are in the workforce. There are men that are, more so the traditional role of being at home. There's vice versa. There's also people that are, more equal at doing both of those things. I'd like to think in the future that I will be able to do both because I do want to be very present with family. Those are things that at my core values wise, I care about. I also know that I feel fulfilled by being able to do some of the type of work that I do right now. And so just changing that dynamic or at least educating people that there is more than just the status quo and to be able to give people the comfort level and the empowerment to, consider yourself empowered to go learn about it. And if you would like to try it, don't feel like it's your gender that's holding you back. Don't feel like it's your age that's holding you back. You have some support and now you have an example. And if they can look at me as that example to help maybe guide some of that decision making on their end or try it. And if they hate it, stop it. Like, I do think some people just need to see that it's been done and like just gives them the runway to keep going.
For sure.
Mhm.
And what are you most proud of now?
Oh, what am I most proud of? Loaded question, because I do feel like that changes um, every new project that I work on. I feel like I work on it so hard to the point that it is a new labor of love. And when you are that invested in a program or you are that invested in a startup, and then they finally start showing the progress that you want, that's always a really proud moment. Um, the very first success that I had in this company was, which I already mentioned, it was when we were um, preparing loan applications for businesses during COVID. And then, that those 200, I used to always say that those 250 jobs that I helped to save were my proudest moment because it was the scariest thing for a 21-year-old to do. It was really hard and really confusing and really challenging. But ultimately, I saw the immediate reward from it when those businesses were emailing and saying, "Thank you so, so much. Like, I could not get through this time without stuff like this. Who made the process so helpful for me? I didn't know what to do with my family." I've always been able to say that is probably my proudest moment to be able to have created some type of impact that way. I keynoted a banquet at my alma mater last year. And I got to share kind of a conversation like this one of just my journey after I graduated from Penn State and the pathway that it led me down and some of the challenges, the overarching theme of what comes after you serve in student government or serve your time in college. And I think what I consider to be a close second as my proudest moment was being able to share kind of this conversation to kids who, I can't call them kids, to young adults that were going to be in my position in just a couple months after that. Um, just inspiring them to create solutions to the problems that the world really needs.
Yeah.
And reminding them of what college won't prepare you for, because I experienced it firsthand. Some of the things that, um, the harsh realities, but also the abundant opportunities that come with those harsh realities. And so that takes the cake as maybe my second proudest moment, to be able to, one, show that I've made impact and feel that I've made impact, but then to share that impact with others and maybe inspire it.
Mm-hmm.
That is like being able to share it is what makes you feel like you're sharing that, like that's what makes you feel like the expert sometimes. It's being able to show, oh, I did learn something that somebody else maybe won't know, but I can tell them that. And so part of why I'm so interested in public speaking, why I love it as much as I do, is because it is a chance for me to battle that imposter syndrome.
It is.
Um, and I like the way that it helps you feel that and the impact that comes out of it. So those are my proudest moments so far. I've done a lot of interesting things in my 5 years. I mean, I've been in a lot of fellowship programs. I've traveled a lot. Um, all of it boils down to, like, they all introduced me to networks and helped me make connections and learn things that have been able to just fuel the other great stuff that I get to do. So um, that's a long-winded answer to say, uh, to say that I'm very proud of being able to make impact with a charity.
I'm so glad. I was wondering if you're going to bring up your keynote presentation.
Oh
when I
yeah.
asked you that question. That's why I inserted the question right after you were talking about being able to share and the ability to empower. Because I think that's such a great strength that you have, is that you're willing to tell the
Mhm.
story. I think it's really vulnerable to talk about what your life experience is and was, and how you got to the point that you are at today, because you're sharing a piece of yourself with others, and you're sharing a piece of yourself with the little girls that you mentioned, or your niece, or that group of students at Penn State. And I would say, leaving imposter syndrome behind, that's the scariest thing of all. So we really need to not be our most professional selves, but be our personal selves.
Mhm.
So I'm so glad that you shared that you're proud of it.
Yeah. And oh my gosh. So on the topic of public speaking, it's been a goal of mine in my life to give a TED talk. So so I'm, actively in the process of preparing for something like that,
Yeah.
and, trying to line that up for the future at some point. And I gotta tell you, after you have me go out there and give a speech about the type of work that I do, or give a presentation, or talk about a program, that's easy. It's not easy, but in comparison to talking about a vulnerable topic in a TED Talk format, or sharing a big idea that has maybe not been shared or articulated in the way in your own words,
Right.
that is challenging. And that makes you want to, it strips you down raw, and forces you to find words to describe experiences that maybe no one has has aligned just yet, which is really raw, really vulnerable, really difficult. And I haven't gotten through that hurdle just yet, which is why I'm, like, still actively in the process. But you're right, it's hard. It's scary, and it's not linear in any way. It's a back to the drawing board type of thing, and it's like everything we've already been talking about, though. If you need to go back to the drawing board, like, feel empowered to go back and change everything and then adjust it again.
Yeah.
And then eventually it will take the shape that you want it to be. And I'm just not fully there at that point just yet, but
You're so close. I can feel that you are so close.
I like to think that I have the self-awareness to get myself to where I need to be. It will just take time and some patience, and I just have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Can I talk to you about how lonely it is to be a young professional now?
Yeah.
I have a study to share with you.
Oh,
And I want to be respectful of your time too.
no,
So
no,
I'll
go
make
ahead.
sure I abbreviate this. But there is a study from the American Psychological Association. It was a Work in America survey, and it found that 45% of workers between the ages of 18 and 25, now I know you just turned 27, but we're going to use this category, reported feeling lonely when working, mostly because of ageism and also connecting with colleagues cross generationally. Has it been lonely for you progressing in your career so quickly? I know it's been lonely for me, so I'll admit that it can be very lonely.
I I would agree. It can be very lonely, and in some ways it has been very lonely. I will preface this by saying I'm lucky to work for an organization where the culture has not allowed me to feel like that within its four walls. We have such a great culture and team morale at the chamber. We do like to consider each other friends. We joke around, we laugh. We always say that we work really hard, we play equally as hard.
Yeah.
And it shows in the type of work that we do, that we've got each other's backs, that we collaborate, that we like to partner, that you know, we always say that we're not parochial, we're very regional, very collaborative. That being said, though, on a personal note, there is always an element of loneliness that I felt. Maybe, and at first I chalked it up to, well, you're going from an environment like a college or a university where the very nature of where you are forces you to make friends. It forces you to be around people and to make connections and to feel like the sense of camaraderie.
Which is great. That's the
Which is
most that
great.
works.
Yes, absolutely. And I loved my time in college. I felt like I came into my own in college. I learned the things that I don't like. I learned the things that I do like. I found the friend groups that, maybe were harder for me to find at a high school level. But you go from an intensive relationship building environment like that where you're all forced in the same regimented schedule to get to know each other, and then coming into a work environment where there is no forcing of that anymore.
Yeah.
The ability to make connections, make friends, it's hard. It's significantly harder to make friends when you're not in school. And especially when you don't have a family that comes from a region like this. And northeastern Pennsylvania is fantastic. I know that people have had, their families grown here, rooted in this area for generations and generations, and that's fantastic. It also sort of puts me at a disadvantage though, because I don't have those roots here. I wasn't born here. Um, I come from a very different background and upbringing, which, it just presents some challenges. That means that my value system as growing up is slightly different. The way that I grew up in general is very different. It's hard to wrap your head around, what your place here is. And then when I say here, I mean like this community here. Like, do I belong here? You know, I went from a place that was like a very diverse college campus that everybody wanted to find these connections and learn about each other and like question, each other and despite your differences, be able to make those connections. And then coming out of that time, number one, it was COVID and everything was virtual, so that was super hard for 2 years. But then to have to acclimate yourself to a community that, my religion and my culture are not very predominant here. So it's just a constant reliance on explaining the differences all the time. And sometimes it feels like, man, I really wish I just didn't have to explain this again. I really wish I didn't have to.
It's a lot of energy, I'm sure.
It does, and it does drain you a little bit, and it does make you sort of question yourself to say, like, is this the right, am I the best fit for a community like this? Do I fit in here? Do I bring the same, the level of experience or connections or just overall values that like lends itself well to here? And I struggled with that for quite some time. Even to today, I still struggle with it. But what really helped me and continues to help me is when I did seek out environments like the ones that I experienced in college.
Mhm.
You know, it's really tough to serve a community if you don't feel like you're a part of that community, right? So, that's around the same time when I became director is when I started Leadership Northeast. So I went through their core program, and it was an intensive fellowship style experience where it was like one day a month. You're going and these are your classmates and your cohort, your group members, you're working on a project together, you're getting to know them, and you're feeling like you're a part of that community. And that was really helpful for me to start feeling some sense of camaraderie again, belonging again. And I think, spoiler alert, the topic of my TED Talk would really be outlining sort of the differences between the ebbs and flows in your life when it comes to belonging and alienation, or connection and disconnection. Because it really does ebb and flow throughout your life. And I was at a time prior to Leadership Northeast where I was really in that ebb, that low ebb of feeling so disconnected, but still having to perform as if I was. Yeah. And so programs like the core program at Leadership really helped me with the feeling of loneliness that I had. And these aren't necessarily topics I can come home and talk to mom and dad about, right? Because, you know, culturally that's not, you go to work and you perform and you're able to, meet your expectations, meet your goals, and, that's going to help you grow in your career. Sure. But the mental side of things isn't a very talked about space in our communities where the anxiety that comes with that, or the imposter syndrome, in a lot of ways, it's not viewed as like a real issue. It's kind of a made up issue sometimes. So to have to navigate some of those things alone has been a challenge, but to go through programs like core where it kind of treats it like an accelerated college environment. And then I think I loved the feeling so much that ever since then, I'd kind of just be chasing fellowships one after the other after the other, because they were all these year-long experiences where I was meeting people from all over the country, different states, different parts of Pennsylvania and beyond, that were either doing my style of job in their areas or doing something completely different, but with an overall mission that is similar.
Yeah.
And being able to meet with them regularly or go and travel and, explore new cities with them and learn from them and learn from that city. Number one, helped me feel like I was getting so much worldly experience that I really, really needed.
Yeah.
But then also, again, that environment of being able to feel like I'm not stagnant. I'm not in one place. I'm learning. I'm still dynamic. I'm still learning all of these new cultures, new people, new perspectives. And I'm able to share mine, and I don't feel bad about any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel, different or ostracized about any of it. And that was like that was the freedom of college, right? That was being able to be 100% yourself all the time.
Show up as you. That's my favorite thing about higher education is you can show up as you.
Mm-hmm. And I think jumping from an environment like academics into an environment like workforce makes you feel like you have to filter what you are sometimes. And I just got so stuck in needing to do that I lost some of the elements that helped me to not feel lonely or helped me to feel, connected in some ways. And I never want to lose those parts of myself. And I definitely don't want to ever get into the practice of losing certain values because they're not considered the normal.
Right.
Because they are a part of who I am. And they're maybe not the most popular parts given the area that we live in, or maybe the most common things that you see among people our age, or people, in whatever instance you can think of regarding your environment or your place in life. It might not be the common, it might not be the status quo, but uh, I never want to get so sunken into the feeling of loneliness that I feel I have to change that.
Of course, and those are your superpowers, the things that make you unique and different from the rest. But I think that's great advice for anyone listening. If they do feel lonely as a young professional, even lonely in general, finding spaces where you can be, whatever that means. But actively, I'm sure it took a lot of energy to sign up for that core program or to find the program or to apply for those fellowships. So it does take action. And I think that can be really tough for young professionals sometimes too, because there's a lot of burnout that comes with doing your best to progress in your career so quickly. So you're almost burnt out while you're trying to stay connected, while you're trying to be a good friend, while you're trying to date, while you're trying to X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z. And it's like this equation that is never ending.
And all of those things require energy now, right? Like
yeah.
they were all built in when you were in school or in these previous environments. You have to work at being a friend now because you don't get to see them all the time
Yeah.
like you usually do. You don't get to, you know, do all these fun things. It's not easy for you to go and just schedule a yoga class. It's,
I know,
you know,
and physical health. There's all these things.
yeah, it's everything now requires so much effort and it's just a challenge. And I guess on the topic of, you know, the overarching topic of feeling lonely, I'm ashamed to say though that I haven't always had the right mindset about how to address that feeling, right? You know, there were times where I just got so fed up at the way that things are or the way I perceived them to be that I just said, you know, well, screw this value. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't make sense for where I'm at or what I'm doing or, you know, whatever boundary I had here, like I'll just chip away at that because that makes me fit in better with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And those were my more formative years in my career, but there were times where I just kind of got so chipped away and jaded about how things were, and I just was on the verge of giving up, and I I did like stray from things that I felt were important, um, not in a way that I would ever say that was like disgraceful to my family or anything like that. That's not the case. Never that deep, but ways that if I were to look back at it now, I'd be like, that's not me, and you know,
Yeah, not living in alignment.
that wasn't in alignment with some of the things that I wanted to do. And I quickly changed that. It was not a long period of my life, but it was a period where I just felt very against a wall.
Yeah.
And I was tired of like pushing through the crowd.
Of course, because again, so much energy exerted
Mhm.
to be pushing against that crowd constantly over and over and over again. So I'm sure that was exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm in a better place when it comes to addressing some of those things. I think I'm starting to more so embrace my uniqueness in different ways. I think in general too, just the world has been changing and I do feel like that there's more people that are tolerant of differences in that way.
Yeah.
Hasn't always been the case, but I like to think that over time I'm just getting more accustomed to it and not feeling, you know, the shame or the embarrassment that I once did or the driving need to sort of like morph yourself into what somebody expects of you. And I think with recovering people pleasers, that's always a challenge. It's like I do not want to disappoint you. And when you're sort of tailor made and built to have all this pressure on yourself and to deliver on certain expectations, and you always want to meet those expectations and never let anybody down, it does sort of in second nature, you see yourself wanting to morph into what conform to whatever is around you, but morph yourself into a person that like feels like that's normal. So that somebody feels like, oh, like that's my type of person, or like doing my types of things that I enjoy. Um, it's taken a lot for me to try to think about like what do I want to go to just because people that I want to be close to are also doing it versus what are the things that I actually enjoy doing.
Sure.
And I'm still learning that truthfully. And I don't, I'm 27 right now, and I do feel like sometimes I feel like I'm 5 years behind when it comes to like learning myself, learning, the emotional intelligence side of the way I want to interact with people, the way I want people to interact with me, the way I view relationships, the way that I view friendships.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like focusing so intensely on academics and career has maybe, when my peers were more so focusing on the emotional and relationship side of things, has sort of left me like it's now I feel like I'm flip-flopped with my peers where like I made it to a point where I'm probably really advanced in my career compared to a lot of people, but on the emotional end of things or on the relationship end of things or just, in finding your people or your community or like your solid core group that embraces you and you feel like you're a part of it. And that's where now you realize that you need time and effort and energy. Because again, now at this age, it requires time and effort and energy. Yeah.
But I think it's the self-awareness that sets you apart because when we think about the life wheel, have you ever seen the life wheel?
It's like,
It's literally just a wheel, but it has different categories. So spirituality, friends,
yeah.
family, financial success. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I'm gonna sip this.
Okay, take a sip. So I explore my life wheel often because mine is out of balance frequently, but less out of balance now than before. I would say about 3 to 4 years ago when I did my life wheel, if I was looking at my friends and family category, I think it's on a 10-point scale, I would have given myself a 2. I just was not present for people in my life. I was so committed to my career, still very much committed to my career, but I make time for the people that I love and I'm really intentional about that. But it really took me filling out that life wheel to be like, damn, I am out of alignment. And what really matters in this world is these people that I've been neglecting for so long. So, I, but I think you're much more self aware than I was and I am to be reflecting on that constantly and making active changes so that you feel like you're in alignment.
I'll be transparent. Sometimes I feel like I make it all up, which
We
is maybe
all do.
it's maybe not the case. It's maybe not the case, but it changes. So some days I feel like, oh man, like I'm giving so much of myself to work right now.
Yeah.
And then other times I feel like I'm not giving my best effort or I'm not giving my best results in what I'm doing right now. That, something is, I need to reprioritize my day somehow to get the quality that I want. Um, and I go back and forth, and it is a constant reassessment. It's a skill to be able to reprioritize yourself on a moment's notice. It's not. I'm trying to think of this phrase that somebody had said. It's like it's not. Oh, it's like the work-life balance conversation. It's like you're not ever gonna really get the perfect balance, but you should be able to achieve the perfect flow
Um,
in your life.
yeah.
There will never be a time where you have everything perfectly equal all the time. There might be times where other areas you need to prioritize other areas over others. You just have to get really good and comfortable about knowing how to flow through it.
Yeah.
I am not there yet for sure. I also recognize that I don't have the same life obligations as some other folks. So I'm sure that will always just require reassessment at the different stages you're at in your lives. I would like to think that, you know, 5 years into the future, I'd be in a different space that would require me to really work on that balance and flow. Um, but I can't say with certainty right now that my life wheel would be super in alignment for where I'm at right now, in one way or the other. Um, I bet you if I took that right now, I would score lower than you think.
I'll send you a copy.
Yes, send me that, and we'll work on it. But no, I take the self-awareness thing really seriously because, like I said, it's not common jargon in my culture. It's not a common discussion piece in our culture and the way that we grew up. It's not, and not that everybody, and not that anybody should view it as an excuse, but it's just not in some ways quote unquote real or acceptable to lean onto that, to lean into mental health, or to lean into um emotional feelings as a reason for certain things. That's more so traditionally, not necessarily my household though. But to know that and to be dealing with some of the transitional items that you do, and I do consider myself to be in a very transitional part of my life, um, to not be able to talk about that in certain ways, to not be able to pinpoint exactly, I may be doing right or I may be doing wrong. I don't want to talk into circles about it because I'm sure I'm probably confusing some folks. So
You're not, but I think the theme is it can be really isolating. I think that can be
it's,
isolating
yeah,
in itself.
yeah, and feeling like you can't talk about it or communicate it in the most efficient, like understandable way. It is maybe the biggest challenge. So then it goes back to you feeling lonely because you feel like you're dealing with the heaviness of it all on your own.
Right.
So yes, yeah. Overall, comes back to I can understand why that study said the statistics that it did. and it makes a lot of sense. And if I had to predict trends for the future, I would say that's probably going to continue just with the way that just with the way the world is.
Oh, and there's a loneliness epidemic that
Mhm.
loneliness is such a major topic, but I just find it so interesting that young
Yeah.
professionals are in this category because it is a lived experience.
Mhm.
But I'm hopeful that just having the conversation that it's okay to be lonely as a young professional because we're just figuring it out and it's new to all of us, maybe takes down that percentage of loneliness even slightly.
It,
Because
I
knowing
mean,
if I'm lonely and you're lonely and I know that you're lonely, it makes me feel less lonely.
of course, again, listen, I bet you we're all probably dealing with the same problems,
Yeah.
and no one feels like they could talk about it to be able to make a connection like that. Why? Because we're not in an environment where people you feel like people that are your peers are able to share things as uh, vulnerably to be able to say that. Everybody says, "Hey, how are you? How have you been since since the last time I've seen you?" "Oh, I'm good. I'm great.
Yeah,
you know, can't complain." That's always the go-to response.
of
But if
course.
people really responded vulnerably and accurately with the way that they were actually feeling, I bet you there's a lot of common ground there. Like, "Hey, I'm a mess," or "I'm actually okay, but I'm feeling kind of lost right now."
Hmm.
Uh, I bet you there would just be so much more genuine connection and genuine relationship building. We cross we've as a society maybe learned to not cross a line into oversharing or to understand what's a polite conversation versus what's an in-depth conversation. If we just got ourselves to the point where we were comfortable with in-depth conversations and we viewed every interaction as an opportunity to deeply get to know a person and engage in like a real conversation as opposed to the surface level catching up, how are you? That's not great, but the real actual conversation. I bet you some of that some I think that has the power to raise some of those to lower some of those stats as opposed to, you know, just reading the information on a piece of paper or showing them an article or showing them something on TV
Sure.
or, with getting people comfortable with having a conversation like this and like being vulnerable enough to share some of the things that they consider to be embarrassing, a bit embarrassing, or things that might, in their eyes, weaken them or make them seem less capable or less of an expert.
Or
That
that's
doesn't,
the imposter syndrome.
yeah.
That's what I used to be worried about is, oh no, if I disclose that I am unhappy or uncomfortable in any way, then it's just going to continue to add to
Mhm.
this narrative that I'm telling
Yeah, it's
myself.
like giving power to the feeling, and
Yeah.
I can in one way I can understand that. In another way, it's like if you feel it, somebody else is gonna feel it, and so are we just gonna struggle in silence, or is there a better way that we could approach it and maybe share that burden together and then maybe help each other through it? And so you and I have been chatting a lot about uh, what it's like to come back into this community or go into this community and like reestablishing, who your people are and sort of, the things that you like doing, reconnecting with some of those things. So I've appreciated your company and your friendship alongside of that. And I guess I'll flip the script a little bit. And I know that you are more so talking to me a lot, but like you tell me you've moved out of this area and then have recently come back in. What's that been like for you? Because you do have those roots here, but maybe those relationships hadn't been as strong when you were in a different part of the state, right?
Yeah. I will answer this briefly because I care much about you. But what I found is I started my career here and I was growing and learning and had and still have wonderful mentors, but they all knew me when I was a student, when I was stumbling, when I was uncomfortable. So it was a beautiful thing for me to go somewhere else, continue and stumble and go through that process, but then reemerge here much more confident in myself and my abilities. And what I'm really grateful for is when I did reemerge, those same mentors and professionals in my network, I could tell that they saw the transformation or respected and appreciated who I was coming back as. But I do think if I stayed here and I didn't leave, that I may always feel like people knew me when
Hmm.
instead of know me now. And that's just a personal statement because I think I had to go through such an evolution to find myself and discover who I was. But I'm glad that I went away and came back because I feel like I'm meant to be rooted here more so than before.
Yeah, yeah.
I took time. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, no, and it does. I asked that. I flipped the script on you slightly because I feel your story is just as unique to share because you and I come from such different backgrounds, yet we still managed to feel such similar ways.
Yeah.
We have like when I say polar opposites, like not from here, went away, never went away. Different cultures, different backgrounds, different marital statuses, et cetera, et cetera. Yet we always come back to I feel disconnected. I don't feel like I'm a part of something, or like I miss feeling like I was part of something. And when you miss that and you go through that, now you're in the ebb and flow, you're feeling disconnected or alienated, what that then does to you and how you seek out changing that, right? And for you, it might have been reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, like, how can I co-work or how can I, learn more and or even just have conversations like this with you more and just feel connected in ways like that." Because you were able to see the value in reaching out and changing that and having a dynamic conversation.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be that comfortable doing it because otherwise it doesn't happen. It will just not naturally happen.
It will not. And I think for me, it was developing confidence in myself and being confident in having those really uncomfortable conversations, even if they don't go well. So, for example, if I reached out to you and said, "Hey, Shani, it's really lonely being a faculty member and having off for the summer because I really need connection. Is there a space at the Think Center or can we connect?" And you were like, "Actually, I'm really busy right now." And no,
Which
that's
I would have
not
never done.
I know you would have, but if you did, I would have been okay with it. And an older version of myself wouldn't have been willing to put myself out there with the potential of being denied. But now it really doesn't faze me. I'm just glad that I take advantage of opportunities. So that's been a major change in my world.
That's a good example to follow. And I look up to you in a lot of ways too, because you carry yourself with such great, I know you said that you think I do,
You
which
do. I don't
I,
think you do.
I totally don't. I've almost sworn maybe 4 or 5 times in this conversation in the last hour, but um, I do feel like you hold yourself to such a high standard and you present yourself with such grace and you articulate yourself so well. Maybe that's the educator in you, but maybe it's just the genuine person that you are. I think really infects the people that you're around. And I do notice myself, even in the few times that we've been able to connect since you come back here. Um, it's just good to know that there's that energy back in this region again. And I think you're going to do great things here. And I like to think that I will do great things here by having friends like you and examples like you to follow.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That was very kind. And we'll do it together.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be back with you. And we both knew each other when, which I think is
That's
special
so
about
funny
this
too.
conversation. I knew you when you were a student.
I can't believe we hadn't mentioned this yet.
I know, and I was working for the Family Business Alliance and a master's student, but very much we were in different phases of our life at that point. But always admired you then because I saw you as a student leader and you were already presenting yourself in this really fabulous way. And maybe you didn't know it then, but to me, your story is different because the you when or back then is just this you have a beautiful story to tell for the person you are today and you owned it. I think I had a harder time owning the process. So I really respect that you went through it, you stayed here, and now you've emerged as you.
I certainly try to. And I would say I'm not done yet. I would like to see myself grow and learn and explore and kind of have that transformational experience that I know has been so important to you and so pivotal in your life. I feel like I'm just waiting for I'm ready for that moment to happen.
Yeah.
I'm ready for me to come out on the other side of something and say, okay, like I feel more aligned, I feel more complete. I feel like the gaps or the misalignments in my life have started to correct myself and I could see I'm growing out of some of the mis or preconceived notions that I had about my career or what I want to do or just to have the confidence level to explore and learn and just being willing to put myself out there in that way. I want to come out. That's what I'd like to see myself do is to like take the risk and come out on the other side of it. Uh, feeling confident and feeling like I know my stuff. And now I should be able to confidently say, like, I know enough to be a little bit dangerous.
For sure.
Not super dangerous, like a little bit dangerous.
You're dangerous.
Dangerous enough to hold
It's going to be, for me, I think, and maybe it'll be something else, but I feel like that's going to be a moment.
Oh, that wish me the very best of luck.
Okay, let me ask you my two final questions,
Yeah.
and they could be speed round. So, what do you wish you knew in your early 20s? I know you're 27 now, but any advice that you have for the audience if they are in their early 20s?
Oh, my early 20s. I think sort of like the overarching theme is maybe just force yourself to get accustomed to change very early. Like learn it when it's uncomfortable, but where you feel like you're in a controlled environment to adjust to it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I maybe took more chances when I was younger. I not to say I'm not proud of the way that I've been able to learn and evolve to do that, but you know, force yourself to make the uncomfortable decisions when you feel like you're in a comfortable enough environment to deal with them.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, maybe you're about to make a super big life decision and it's going to impact your whole family. And then this is the reality for a lot of people, right? A lot of people in their mid 20s, if you're in the process of maybe finding a partner or wanting to settle down or anyway, like you're about to make a very big decision for your life. And you don't want to get paralysis because you can't make the decision or you can't sort through the decision. And if you don't make that decision, things actually get impacted.
Yeah.
But if you train yourself to make hard decisions in a place that's maybe more comforting or where you have support and guidance from other people, or you're doing it alongside other people who are also doing something like that. I do wish I did that a little bit more, and it would make me more comfortable to do that nowadays. Because now you do have to make hard decisions, and you don't have the luxury of time necessarily. You don't have the luxury of help all the time, and it's different. It's different to not be in a sheltered environment, but now be responsible for making the world go round. And this is now suddenly, I'm not a little, even though I definitely feel like a child still, like I still feel like a kid, but like I'm not a little kid anymore to the point where I can blame anybody for the way things are. Like now, at a certain point, you have to understand you're responsible for changing it, but that means that you need to be comfortable with enacting some type of change.
And every decision matters, which goes in beautifully with my next question about the ripple effect. So, have you seen anything or done anything that you feel has had a major ripple effect in your life on the community? It could be anything.
Ooh, major ripple effect. Putting myself out there more has helped me feel more connected in my career to be able to, if I didn't initially put myself out there to say like, hey, I do want to speak to this group, or I do want to, I feel comfortable making this presentation, or if I never started honing that skill set, I would have never gotten to the point where I do feel as comfortable as I am in front of a crowd today. It really did start with like, do you want to speak to a classroom? And I've had a lot of opportunities to speak in my life. I've spoken at graduations, I've spoken virtually, I've done podcasts before, but in the professional world, I really did have to start small with those presentations and like gradually move up. And it's your comfort level with your own words. And even if you don't know them just yet, just the authenticity to be able to find them live and raw and real conversation. None of this is obviously scripted, but um, it's a real act of maturity to be able to put words to your own thoughts and to be able to share them in a controlled setting like this.
You
But
just stumble publicly, right?
which I
That's
do
how it's to
often.
me all the time.
Which I do often, and I think, but that's part of why I appreciate my speaking style so much. I don't look at myself as a perfect speaker, but I do feel like it feels more raw. It feels more me.
Sure.
When I am talking of it. Honestly, like I said, if this conversation were perhaps not for this audience, there would be more swearing in it. Slightly more swearing, but that's when, I know I'm trying my best here, but I do feel like that's when you get your best workout. It's training your brain to inject yourself into everything that you do.
Yeah.
It's like your personal thumbprint on everything. So I am proud of the way that I've built my speaking career. I'm excited to see sort of how I continue to progress in that space. I'm super excited that, I guess, officially became a professional speaker as of last year. I'm excited to see where that takes me and how it helps to inform my work and even impact the stuff that I do.
And last question. What is one thing that brought you joy today?
Oh my gosh. Other than seeing your beautiful face and getting to share that, I think some of the things, well, I mentioned my birthday was yesterday. So our team does a lunch at the office for every team member that's having their birthday. They get to pick a little location to order from. And then the entire team gets cupcakes and they sing for you. And they all signed a card, and the card will just have some messages. But the card that I got actually had our intern at the chamber, David. He wrote a message in the card that said, um, "You're a rock star. Be careful now that you're 27." And I thought about it and I was like, what a cool way, like, what a cool note to have from your intern who is still in college to look at you and say, like, you're smart, like, I view you as a rock star, and you're just 27, which means you have the capacity to do
Like, just
all
wait.
this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just kind of brings you back down to earth because on one end you have everybody saying like, hey, you're old, or like you're getting there, and then you have other people that are like, oh my gosh, you're a baby. And then you have this intern who is obviously he's younger than us, and being able to say like, I have such respect for you, and I think you're capable of doing like crazy cool things, and you're just 27, and that's like so impressive.
Save that card.
And yeah, absolutely. So that's something that really made my day.
Do you want to show your cupcakes to the audience just to make people hungry?
Yes, I have some extras to bring home.
Happy birthday, Shanie. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to share before we say goodbye? I don't want to say goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
Anything else? Anything you feel like you missed that you want to share?
Listen, I think what I appreciate about settings like this is that it is raw, and I think the conversation flows as it does. So I'm happy with how it went. I feel good. I feel light.
Me too. I feel really light.
But that being said, if there's ever another topic that you want to talk about or like dive more into, I'd love to be back. I love the fact that you do this.
Yay.
I'd love the fact that you do this, and I so appreciate you even thinking of me to be able to share stories like this. I do think that there is such power in being able to share that,
Yeah.
and to show people that you absolutely can, and you do have something to bring to the table. So I appreciate you for that, for recognizing that in me.
Thank you, Shani, and thank you for reminding me and everyone else that's listening that we belong in the room.
Mm-hmm.
As young for just the bug been flying around, I've been trying my best not to swat it. We belong in the room. And there is always an opportunity to tell our unique story. And I really appreciate you again being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And I'll go back to saying that you are extremely rare and extremely brave. And I'm just really lucky to call you my friend.
Oh, same here. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, find one thing that brings you joy today. Bye.